Okay, so imagine he's walked in, he just finished a cigarette outside. He's got a large cup of coffee from Starbucks. He's covered, his black coat is covered in cigarette ash. And he lumbers in slowly and sets up at the lectern, kind of breathes a little bit, gets himself situated. He loved the lectern. He didn't say that. You could just tell. Some teachers, they don't want the lectern, but he really liked that lectern, I felt. So this is September 13th, 2011. It's about maybe 7 o'clock. It's just gotten dark. And he starts, in this week's New Yorker, September 5th's New Yorker, there's a piece by Ian Fraser. He's a good friend of mine about the strand beasts. And if this doesn't qualify as ecology and art, I don't know what the fuck does. You should read Ian's essay about it and about the Dutch guy who did it. This is the New Yorker. It's a magazine published in New York. I'm so glad there's something decent in art and ecology. I did write some of the first pieces for Art in America on Earthworks. I'm a little disappointed it hasn't gone any further than Jim's Crater. I started teaching about 20 years ago when I was 50 years old. I was a full-time freelance writer about art before that. Since that time, I'm 70 now. I've never taught undergraduates. I remember being an undergraduate, but I don't remember being taught anything as an undergraduate. I am totally fucking at sea. My job is not to teach you facts and shit. It's to give you my take on how things are in the arts. If you don't know anything about any other art, you're in deep doo-doo. I can't grade you. This class would be empty. I'd be in the dean's office. If I see you don't understand, you should hold up your hand and say, I don't understand. There's no reason for you to know the shit I know. If I use the name of an artist, you can Google it. I don't feel like I should explain shit if you can Google it. I'm not fucking Wikipedia. I fear that most of you take a little bit too much advantage of the net. I'm kind of apologizing, but really I'm not, because they didn't tell me I'd be teaching undergraduates. I spent all week long trying to think of things to talk about that don't require you ever having seen a painting or even write a book. That's really fucking hard, and I'm getting really fucking tired of it. I'm going to have to come in here and during class time and play you some symphonies. I'm going to have to show you some movies. My experience of teaching you this class before is if I don't do it in here, it ain't gonna happen. I'd like you to keep a diary or a journal of all the art and music and video and film experiences that you have. Just keep it hour by hour, day by day. Also, include your hours in the studio. At the end of the semester, you will turn these things into me. If you don't turn one in, you get an F. I know that sounds really, really tough, but starting tomorrow, I want to know how much time you spend in the studio. It is my vision of most of you that you are hell-bent in living in a stucco house in the lower middle class working at fucking Jiffy Lube.
What's Jiffy Lube?
What's Jiffy Lube? Tell them to Google it.
I'm not Wikipedia. Okay. What if you get a law degree and you're a junior partner in a firm? What if you're an intern? What if you went to medical school? You don't get to go home. You sleep at the hospital. This amounts to 20,000 hours that you are not investing in your career. You get paid for work. This is a working society. This is not vacation. Wendy's is an honorable profession. At least they have square burgers.
What?
At Burger King, you don't even need to know the words. You just hit the button by the picture. Then your art education might come in handy. Who is lazy as the white people? Our presumption that all the lazy people are sitting in front of a cantina and a sombrero is not exactly right, because these people work and they don't make any money. And if they lose their lease, they get their stuff all out on the corner. So try to up your production a little bit. I will give you a final that will be based upon Terry Castle's The Professor, an in-class final. If you're mediocre in America, you're okay. And if you think Social Security is a Ponzi scheme, you are fucking crazy. Did you hear Rick Perry say that? Jesus Christ. This guy could be president. Everybody's mad at him because he gave children a vaccine to keep them from getting ovarian cancer. And when you get a vaccine at 12, you can have sex. No one in the Tea Party wants you to have sex.
Wait, you can't.
I don't know. This is not TV. I see you out there, and if I say something you don't understand, because your jaw drops down and you stare at me like cows on a passing train. So I did not write this part down, but he then proceeds to read about Bruegel's The Harvesters for a really, really long time, like 45 minutes or an hour. It either was that or it felt like that, but then I continue on here. He's put the book down for a minute. The proportion of the panel is 2 by 3. So 2 up, 3 across. You can't trust anything or anybody anymore. 2 overlapping squares divide the painting into vertical thirds. I don't think a peasant ever saw this painting until an Amish person wandered into the Met long ago. Do we appreciate the peasants? Of course not. They're louts. We appreciate the flow of the structure, regardless of what it's about. No one's ever figured out what it's about. It's peasants, it's vodka, which means we don't know what it means. What brings us back to paintings is that there's something there, order beneath the chaos, structure beneath the picture. This means realism is just a fucking trick. Realism is just the bouquet, it's just the dress. What we respond to is the relationship between this side and that side. It's a Protestant picture. The center of the painting is a bunch of wheat. My point about Bruegel and the way I like to teach and the way I think you should learn is I really do think your idea of art is almost utterly destroyed by learning art in historical sequences, because this gives you the idea that art is able to cause art. It's not. People cause art, and art influences people, and people cause other art. Say I was teaching you a course on Renaissance painting. I would pick Parmigianino. We learn about his neighborhood, his boyfriends, the collections he is in. And at the end, you'd know more about the whole Renaissance art movement. It's better to know everything about something than a little something about everything. If you know all about a lesser known person, they assume you know all the obvious stuff. All art is always modern. Art stays steady. We get old and die. If I write about the Bruegel, what I have written is old, but if you see the Bruegel, it's still new. Do you know what I mean? Now, I will explain the difference between high and popular art. The thing about high art is that if you go in the Bible, they have the book of Ecclesiastes and the book of Proverbs, and these are full of ways to live your everyday life. They tell you to be nice to your children, and the sun rises and sets. Basically, they're sort of how to sustain everyday life, how we act toward our friends and our business associates. And then there's the book of Psalms. The Bible is a book that Christians use. Usually it's black and has gold letters on the front. Maybe not anymore. Maybe now it's got J-Lo on the front. Anyway, maybe music. Anyway, popular music is our Psalms. You've lost that love and feeling. I'll tell you why I don't understand the New Testament and why I don't really understand Christianity. I understand they're supposed to be merciful and tolerant, but I've never met one. Are they still Christians if they're not tolerant and good? I don't think so. Religions are based on sacrifice. Sacrifice a goat to the gods so your penis will get hard. To get something, you give something. Whenever we buy anything beyond our everyday needs, we are sacrificing something that we've earned to get something back, like that nice white shirt with the pleats in it. Most of the stuff we get shouldn't cost very much. I can completely outfit myself for about 60 bucks if I have on cheap shoes, and I do. Because it doesn't matter how I look, it matters how you look or how the art looks. I'm not the show, but if we really believe in something, like a troll doll, and your mother bought you the worst troll doll in fucking history, it was on sale, you can't show your friends because you're so embarrassed to show your friends your cheap troll doll, it's because she did sacrifice, like your friend's parents did, to get you the good troll doll. What's going to make me feel better? Let's say I go on 2 weeks of intensive meditation and prayer to see if it'll improve my life. If I take the money I could have made in those 2 weeks and buy an Armani suit, I am really making a big sacrifice for the power that accrues to Armani. Jeff Beck's Strat. My point is we are used to, in this culture, to accepting the success of those who sacrifice, which is to say that I can tolerate Peyton Manning making $20 million a year because he has invested the hours it took to be Peyton Manning. So I'm not jealous he has $20 million a year. We judge people by their sacrifice. This is why we don't much like rich kids who just got all this stuff and the jet ski just because their dad runs some company that sells rubbers in New Jersey. Here's Christianity. What Christianity does is turn the whole game around, whereas a normal person, you would work and sacrifice to get what you want. No, not Christianity. Christianity, God sacrifices to you. He gives you his only begotten son, whether you want him or not. And therefore, the reason now you've gotten his only begotten son, you have to behave in a certain way or you won't go to heaven. Christianity motivates us with guilt. Oh God, I hope I do good. I don't want to let Jesus down. People who live in New York don't do too well with guilt unless it's your mother. She can lay on the guilt. Oh, it's okay, honey. I've just got my head in the oven. When your parents die, it's not that bad. No, I mean, I loved my mom. She was great. She was a terrible mom, a tycoon, sort of. And when she died, I cried. And it was real sad. And we had a funeral and we stood around. Then I went home and opened the closet door and threw away every piece of clothing she'd ever given me because they were so fucking dorky. There's always a good side. Nothing is without its benefits. You have to recognize this stuff so you don't get over emotional. If you get over emotional, you might make promises you can't keep. Mom, I miss you. I'm never going to drink again. This ritual sacrifice is probably best exemplified in the art world. The art market is not defined by who the artist is, but who the owners are. The people that have the most good art, their art goes up faster than anyone else's art. If a good person buys a painting, the price goes up. Art prices go up in a geometric progression. They go 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, 100,000. To have the power to do this, you have to have a lot of good things. If you just buy one good thing because everyone in your neighborhood buys one, that's not good. If you're in the art market, and I was an art dealer for a long time, you tend to sell out pockets. If you sell a painting to one proctologist in Beverly Hills, eventually you will sell to all the proctologists in Beverly Hills. The last one to buy the painting gets the least valuable painting. It matters how much presence and authority you have and who the seller is. If you personally and who the seller has. If you personally go into Larry Gagosian and want to buy an Andy Warhol, you will pay top price. If I go into Larry Gagosian, I will get a much better deal because my owning one will help raise the price. So thanks, Dave. My point is, this is all about sacrifice and perceived power of objects to make us look more successful. You buy the Ellsworth Kelly painting when you like them. I like lifesavers too, but it's not the same thing. When you acquire this, you are making a sacrifice as a pagan would. If you go in one day and can't get a date and you sacrifice a goat to the god, if you sacrifice 5 goats, that's more of an Armani kind of sacrifice, and that helps you get girls. This is basically a pagan world where we sacrifice for what we want. If you want to be an artist, just don't have children. Sorry, buddy.
What
They don't mean you, they mean those other people. If you want to be an artist, just don't have children. Just be nice to children in the street. I found being a dirty old man, I can't even look at a baby in the street without a mother reeling back. Oh man, we are habitual about sacrifice. Not only that, this is one of the ways that we judge one another. Over the years, I've discovered everyone's beautiful that wants to be. But I'm talking about women. I don't know about men. I guess that vampire guy is supposed to be beautiful. I don't know. He looks more like a pillow biter to me. The way we judge people has to do with the estimation of the extent to which they have sacrificed. In the 60s, if you didn't look enough like a homeless person, we're not going to rap with you, dude. Our culture is a culture of shared sacrifice and investment. If you think I've been watching, I've discovered the military channel doesn't have any commercials at night. So it's Hitler all night long. Hitler's doctor, Hitler's cult beliefs. But what I've learned, it's like to me like nobody. Yeah. Where did I go? I'm sorry. Where's the Hitler thing? Hitler's cult beliefs. But what I've learned from watching all this Hitler stuff is we couldn't do World War II anymore because it only took 4 fucking years. They shot everyone and built bombs and did it all in 4 years. We can't even get a Humvee across the street in Iraq in 4 years. I have a bigger respect for the Second World War. What interested me most about sacrifice is if we are indeed a pagan culture and you say, what do we have in common? I look at the Nuremberg rallies, hail Hitler, hail Hitler. I couldn't get y'all to hail at the same time. It would take a week. You don't have anything in common, nothing genetic in common, you know? We don't have any homeland in common. The difference between New Mexico and Vermont and Baptist in Vermont and Baptist in New Mexico are very different. We don't share a culture. We don't share a language. We don't share any sort of historical heritage. We don't share anything. Everybody has the same story, but nobody has the same culture. America is built for C students. The assumption is that C students need a little bit of help. There's no help for A students. There's no help for F students. F students are just sort of destined for the Dairy Queen. This is kind of a good idea because I'm really smart and I don't need much help. And if you're an average Joe, you need some help. If you can't decide at 19 whether to have your 3rd baby or not, you need some fucking counseling. So we have mass production. There's a book called The Americans by some Jewish guy, great book. Let's say you live in Kansas in 1925. And you are in the dead geographical middle of America. There is no geographical feature out there on the plains to identify Pittsburgh, Kansas, except for a sign. Who lives there? Well, we got some Black people who left the South and heard it was cold in Chicago. We have hillbillies who poured out of the hills of Appalachia, bankers who came from the East Coast to take all the money from the people who live in Pittsburgh, Kansas, farmers who came to escape the cold. You got all these people in the city called Pittsburgh, which is neither a pit nor a bird. Oh, and you've got a bunch of Chinese people who came through with the railroads. And you have all these people, and what do they talk about? A lot of them don't even speak the same language. They talk about their Ford. That Ford is what they have in common. You can talk about your Ford with anyone. I'm having trouble with the fucking gear here. Oh, I can fix it. Can you believe the black guy painted his Ford red? And we communicate classes and values. And where do you take care of your engine? If you're a guy, you talk about Fords. Women talked about their Singer sewing machine. You can use this needle and you can stitch flowers. You got all these people with nothing in common except the products of mass production. As I say, if I go into an airport in Denver, which is where people go on their way to hell, they have to stop off and change in Denver. The bar in the United Terminal in Denver looks like the waiting room for Beetlejuice. If you get in there and you're just sitting in the bar, you can talk about the Lakers. You can talk about movies or John Elway or Roseanne. I can't believe she's still trying to make it. You can talk about all this stuff that we all share. What we do in this country is that all of this 9/11 shit is bullshit. We are not one people. We are a bunch of people held together by our devotion to objects and games. Before the internet was invented, I had an idea that all you had to do to get a date was leave a list of all the records you bought and they'd match you up with someone who bought the same records. We can do that now, and in truth, it hasn't really helped. My point is that how we relate to each other, that is how we relate to each other. There used to be a great skit on SNL about the two couples that meet, and they're both secret fans of Joey Bishop, the least important member of the Rat Pack, sort of like the people who ran the Scotch tape store. I hate to tell you, but that's the way it works. The more the options proliferate, the more the culture proliferates. It's why I'm glad Kiss isn't making records anymore. Kiss allowed dangerous kids to find each other. Let's say you meet a guy in a bar and he says, I hope you meet Garth Brooks as much as I do. I mean, you saved yourself a lot of time, didn't you? I have to go to the bathroom. Then he comes back. That's the language we speak. There's no way to understand the commitment we have for the things we are committed to. There would always be a very elaborate rationalization. I always hated Cowboy fans. They're the fans that root for management. Come on, Jerry Jones, make those black people do the same thing twice.
Yeah, I hate Jerry Jones and the Cowboys suck.
Thank you.
Suck.
Thank you.
And you're not America's TV.
Woo! No cowboy love here in New York. We watch TV and everything works out all right. The villain gets convicted. They used to get convicted 100% of the time. We've lost some trust in the police, so now we only convict them about 85% of the time. You couldn't have a fucking sitcom if everybody watched TV. If Michael J. Fox was in there watching Ron Paul, you wouldn't have any fucking stories. We have people who don't watch TV for us. They're the symbolic people who don't watch TV, and go out and drive around with an AK-47. We all find ourselves, we can't get into a bar and not sort ourselves out among the gun nuts and the knife nuts. That's the cultural divide here in town.
What's the knife nut?
Someone who loves knives and getting in knife fights. If you think about it, we read books and they kind of teach us how to live, but who do we know as well as we know someone in a novel? My brother? God forbid, I have no idea what turns his crank. He's sitting in Boca Raton with a 20-year-old DeLorean in a crummy apartment and does deals with porno nuts. He and I are not close. I don't know him. Do you know any of your best friends? You don't know each other. How many times have I heard people say after someone died, I really got to know him? You can have sex with perfect strangers. Plenty of married people do. These pagan communities are important because they're not exclusive. Just because I like the Swans' first album doesn't mean I like the second album. I belong to the Miles Davis Club, and except for a short period in the 70s when he was playing with Mahu Vishnu, I've always been in the Miles Davis Club. The club doesn't kick anybody out or keep anybody in. You can find anything in Vegas. You can call out for an Arab boy, you know what I mean? It's a commercial community. It holds us together, but it doesn't hold us together real well. You can always say, I'm not really into that band. You can always quit, but you can always assemble these little isolated cultures. That's what the internet's about. Oh, you like bratwurst too? Then you like bratwurst too?
No.
Okay, good. Then you have a bratwurst clique. We don't really have communities, but overlapping systems of interest and commitment. I love that. We have overlapping systems of interest and commitment. I know Cowboys fans who are more committed to the team than the Lord. If the rapture comes, will they take the Cowboys? Will there be the Cowboys in heaven? Last page. There are some kinds of art that are there to tell us everything is going to be okay, like everything on TV. Oh, they worked it out. Billy's learned it's okay to have two moms. Then there are other kinds of art that are there to tell us we're going to die. Have you read the book of Isaiah or Revelations? They're all about, we're all going to die and get spun on stakes and burned. It's about the fragility and the careful contingency of human life. When we watch popular art, we presume there is a moral center that is going to keep the hero from being shot. Under every picture, like the Bruegel, there is a structure. The secret of songwriting is don't bore us, get to the chorus. This is where I'm typing and it starts to get a little bit scattered and he's like winding down and not everything's like, I'm not typing every little like connective little one-off thing. German art is terrible pictures of beautiful things. Italian art is beautiful pictures of terrible things. Ravished by the image and terrified by the content. You're torn between wanting that giant steak and the giant steak having more green paint than you want because it's a German painting. You know what I mean? Poor Lindsay Lohan. You're all fucked up and you can't decide if you're straight or gay and your parents are the worst parents in the world since Adam and Eve and you turn on the TV and there you are being good in the parent trap. We're not gonna live forever. We call this high art.
Nice.
Oh,
Yeah.
amazing lecture.